Welcome to the Libertarian Counterpoint. I'm Richard Fields. Our panelists today are Erik Smitt, a spokesman for the Don't Double the Tax, No on Measure B. Also, Debra Desrosiers, who is vice chair for Don't Double the Tax, and Robert Page, a retired financial planner. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Libertarian Counterpoint is on, obviously, Channel 17 in Sacramento, Access Sacramento. It's also on the web at www.accesssacramento.org, Channel 17, and, of course, on YouTube. And we're on the air at 8 p.m. on Thursday, noon on Friday, 4 a.m. on Saturday, all Pacific time. So keep an eye out for this weekend, next week, and the week after that. We'll be back. You guys are also from an organization called Eye On Sacramento. Tell me what that is and what it does and what it's got to do with Measure B.
Well, certainly, thank you for the opportunity to talk to your audience here today. And Debra and I are members of Eye On Sacramento, which has been around for about 5 years. We're a watchdog organization, we're a policy organization, and we're a community outreach organization. Our whole focus is digging into the details and educating the public on the issues that are important in today's Sacramento environment.
Okay, and how did you get involved in Measure B? What's the impetus on that?
So we've tackled quite a few items, and I would reference the eyeonsacramento.org website for all of the reports going back 5 years. Garbage. We started in garbage. It's been up since then. We have.
Wait, you started with what are you doing with garbage?
Garbage collection in Sacramento.
Tell me about that.
So we reviewed the contract the city signed at the time and had some key information on that contract at the time, which gave us the most expensive garbage rate in the region. And this tends to be the types of areas we explore. We've gotten into a variety of issues as they've come through the community. We did the financial analysis in your bailiwick for the arena. We did not take a position on the arena, as Eye On Sacramento usually takes no position on ballot issues, and we have not taken an Eye On Sacramento position on Measure B. So a lot of financial analysis, and that brings us along to the crisis at RT, which interested us. We have a great new addition to our organization, Greg Thompson, emeritus professor from Florida State. Sacramento was his home, and he returned from Florida to his home in Sacramento. And he is a professor of urban development and transportation. He is an expert in this topic. And Greg Thompson and Debra Desrosiers co-wrote our report, which is Eye On Sacramento report on spending of Measure A taxes, implication for the Measure B tax proposal.
Okay, let's start with Measure A. When was Measure A passed? What did it do? What was it supposed to do, and what did it do?
So Measure A was passed in about 1988. The first Measure A, you have to keep count of
it's
these
the
things.
Original Measure A.
The original Measure A. It was repassed by the electorate in 2006.
2004.
2004?
Yeah.
Good. And started in 2009, the current Measure A.
The new Measure A is what it's referred to as.
Yes.
Okay, what was the original Measure A, the 1988 version?
It was for traffic relief and congestion relief.
And it was a funding issue, a sales tax issue?
It was a sales tax issue.
Of how much?
0.5 cent.
Okay, so it started out as 0.5 cent,
Yeah.
and it's been renewed. The successive Measure A's are renewals of that 0.5 cent sales tax?
Yes, the renewal in 2004, and
Okay.
that went into effect in 2009.
Okay, so that's what, for the city, the county, both?
The county, it's countywide sales tax.
Okay.
And
Okay.
how much money is Measure A bringing in, and how is it being divided?
Well, that's a great question. Last year, do we have a place to put this visual?
I can hold it for you.
Okay, this.
I don't know if anybody can see it, but I'll hold it up.
This is, you probably can't see it, but last fiscal year they brought in $109 million, and it's starting in 2009, 2010.
That's right.
They brought in $82 million. So this tax has been increasing on average of about 4.75% in the 7 years that it's been running. We have another 23 years left to run on Measure A, and it's expected to bring in approximately $317 million in 2039. So it's going to triple from what it is right now in the next 23 years in revenue.
Going from 100 million to 300 million?
Yes, if it continues at the rate. I took an average of what the rate has increased so far of Measure A and just projected it forward to come up with the 317 million in 2039.
Okay, so it's, and is the dollars raised have tripled, is that what you're saying?
They've gone right now from the beginning in 2009, 2010 of 82 million
Okay.
to current rate of 109 million,
Okay.
over 109 million.
Okay, so but it goes up every year
It does.
as a result of higher retail sales?
Yes, this
Okay.
is a retail sales tax.
Okay, so retail sales go up, automatically the sales tax goes up, and as I understand it, Measure B would double the tax collected from a half cent to a full cent,
Exactly,
even though the revenue is going up under Measure A.
right.
Okay, why is that? Why does the city and the Transportation Authority feel the need to not just live with the already increasing revenues from Measure A, but to double that?
Well, that's a pretty broad discussion. And what I see is the government never has enough money, regardless of what they're collecting. So certainly in our report, we issued a report on RT before the Measure A report. RT is in crisis and near bankrupt. Our report analyzes that and shows it's a situation of their own making. It's not a funding issue. It's profligates. They have not managed the money well. So when a government entity like RT does not manage the money well, they need more. And so they've asked for more. You will see in the report where funds have been diverted for developer projects that weren't part of the original Measure A program.
By developer projects, you're referring to what?
Well, Township 9 specifically, and Township 9 is in the Richards Boulevard area. So recognize that RT has a general manager who's recently retired, and a new one, Henry Lee, who we appreciate very much. And it has a board of directors filled by all of the electeds around the county. 16 elected politicians.
Elected to what positions?
Well, board of directors. And
Okay.
so
people-
when you look at
people-
responsibility for RT, I feel it rests with the general manager and the board of directors on
Okay.
where they spend their money,
And
how
the,
they
and
spend
the board members are elected directly by the public?
No, they are not.
They're elected
They
by?
are assigned. So there are members from each municipality in the county, and they are assigned by the various municipalities to be directors.
Okay, so the city of Ileton will say, okay, we're going to send the mayor, or we're going to send the vice mayor, or we're going to send the dog catcher?
Yes,
Okay,
they get to pick whoever it is,
Okay.
including the dog catcher.
okay.
Okay?
Any of them have any knowledge of how to run a transportation system?
Boy, that's a great lead-in. I haven't seen many politicians in this area who are transportation experts. Certainly not to the degree that Greg Thompson is.
That's your guy from Florida.
Yes. So They decided that to promote the rail yard area and the Township 9 development, they would build this rail system, light rail, for 1.1 miles out to that area at a large cost, $42 million. Now, you will hear in the promotions for Measure B that they want to match funds from the state and the feds. Not even the state and the feds would match this project. It was so poor.
Poorly conceived, unnecessary, poor in what respect?
One, light rail is best at high speed and high volume. Putting it 1.1 miles into nowhere creates operating deficits from the very beginning.
So, in other words, they created a mile-long line that never ever had any hope of having even close to a return on investment from fares.
Absolutely.
Okay.
You get it.
Okay.
But
Sounds like the bullet train.
Yes, it
Yeah.
does. But the developers wanted this.
Now, why did the developers want it?
Well, certainly they get certain subsidies, certain benefits in permitting, etc., when they can say our new development will be served by light rail. It sounds wonderful, doesn't it? You know, people who don't look beyond that would say, "Oh, that's so wonderful." You know, they're currently saying that about light rail to the airport. Oh, it sounds so wonderful. It's another fiasco in the making. So they lose money operating it. There are about 300 people a day on these big trains, and it is
And
just...
what would be the break-even passenger load on something like that? Or is there even one?
I don't believe we set that. I don't believe that's within our ability to project, given that we don't have all of the books on RT. I'm certainly we could get that answer in the future. And Henry Lee has been very supportive in delivering information like that. But when you see the trains full, going back and forth to Folsom, you know that that is a much better fare box than 300 people going to Richards Boulevard.
Mm-hmm.
So it creates operating deficits. We call it the death spiral for RT. Poor investments, no return, as you've recognized, and so it burdens the system. They run short of money, so they want more. After that comes things that they did promise, like the route out to Consumnes College. Well, because they spent the $42 million on Richard Boulevard Township 9, they didn't have the funds to go out to Consumnes, so they had to borrow that. That creates debt. Again, a financial burden. Perhaps even Consumnes does not have the ridership necessary to make it a viable operation with the current population. They didn't decide to extend it down to Elk Grove, where there's significant population that could come to downtown.
It seemed to me that if you're pulling a lot of traffic from Folsom, it would also be possible to pull a lot from Elk Grove. They're both similar commuter communities.
Very similar bedroom communities for the hub of Sacramento, and it makes good sense. Again, we go back to Robert's comment, none of the people on the board are transportation experts. They're all politicians. And we think this is a root failing of the RT management system.
Is there any possibility that this will be finished before we've arrived where you have driverless cars that can take people there much quicker and much less expensively?
Well, certainly the light rail to the airport won't be finished before we have driverless cars, because those will be factual within the next few years. And driverless cars, without the expense of rail and all of the infrastructure that comes with it, because it isn't just the rails down the road. Every time they put rails down the road, they have to move utilities, and they've got to create utilities, electricity delivery for the rail cars. So driverless vehicles is an option for the future that is not even recognized in Measure B. What we view Measure B as is a regression to the last century rather than looking forward. It's a patchwork. It's to address certain political concerns.
Okay, we're talking a lot about light rail. Is any of the Measure A and or Measure B money supposed to go to streets and highways?
I'm going to defer to Debra with the facts.
Well, we do have in Measure A, the current Measure A, 3.99% is going towards safety, streetscaping, pedestrian and bike facilities, and then
Okay, so 4% to bikes.
right, and then that's
walkways.
divided up by jurisdiction, and
Okay.
that division is based on population, 75% on population, 25% on road miles in the city of each area or the county.
In those cities, Citrus Heights, Elk Grove, Folsom, Rancho, Cordova, Sacramento, and the county.
Right, and then we have street road maintenance of 29.41% of Measure A right now, and then traffic control and safety is 2.94%.
Okay, street and road maintenance is just that. It's just filling potholes and keeping existing roads functional, I take it.
It is supposed to be, but what I found out in my research on Measure A is that, take Sacramento County, for example, they received $13.3 million last year. A majority of the money is going to salaries and benefits. And in the actual ordinance, which is a law, it does not designate that any of this money can go to salaries and benefits. It has specific uses it's supposed to go to for road maintenance. So, I mean, just off the top
So
of
we're
my
paying
head,
all supervisors and no workers?
we're paying salaries and benefits and very little in actual road maintenance.
Okay, so we're hiring a lot of straw bosses and nobody to boss?
I don't know. I don't know what the, I don't know.
Well,
what
I mean, no, I'm trying to picture this. Are
Yeah.
we paying
I
one
think
guy,
you have the picture.
one guy to dig and 10 people to watch?
Well, you know, Sacramento County has a budget, and they already in their budget cover salaries and benefits. So why the County of Sacramento is using Measure A money to pay salaries and benefits is puzzling.
Would it be that the county and the various municipalities are saying, hey, this is a way that we can cover salaries and benefits without digging into other sources of
Is
revenue?
that not standard procedure for governments to pass bills that are supposedly covering everything else, and the majority of the funds go back to wages, pensions, and benefits?
Two questions. Are they tapping what's supposed to go to fix the roads to pay unrelated, non-road related salaries and benefits?
In my opinion,
Okay.
yes.
Well, you've done the research.
I did.
Okay. Okay. So, and then the last part, control and safety. Police? What? What does that mean?
No, this is like signal control, light signal control. and safety.
We're spending 3% on red light cameras?
Not on cameras, but coordinating the signals.
Making sure that
They turn red and green
at the right
time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's 29, 33, 36 is supposed to go for streets and highways. Is that the idea?
Actually, the highways is under capital projects, which is $22 million. But right now, what they're doing to fund their capital projects and what they're going to do with Measure B is take out bonds. And we're estimating, according to Sacramento Transportation Authority's agendas and meeting minutes, that they will have about $450 million in outstanding bonds by the end of 2017. And the bond interest increases. Some of their bonds they've taken out are interest only in the future. Some of them have no interest payments. Some have interest payments that start in the future. They're not fully amortized. And so we're going to be seeing the bond interest increase and take up more of the Measure A spending or money available to the entity.
Okay, let me see if I understand this.
Clarify a point.
Let me see
that-
if I understand this correctly. They're taking out teaser rate mortgages?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And they are taking out these interest-only or suspended payment options of various varieties.
What bond salesman talked them into doing that?
Well, they love it because, the Goldman Sachs of the world make a fortune off of it.
I'm saying that, the bond salesmen make a heck of a lot more money on interest only than they do when you amortize.
It also looks much better on the budget because you've now have your credit card bill that you have to pay as opposed to the bill that
Right.
you have to pay. And look, we don't really have all these bills. We just have this credit card bill, which is infinitely smaller, and who's worried about a few pennies here and there to pay for the bonds.
Correct.
For the interest on the bonds. You just keep doing exactly what the federal government is doing, why we have a $20 trillion debt at this point. And look, the budget deficit's getting smaller.
Yes. These are perpetuities. They were invented centuries ago because people could not afford to properly finance.
Oh, okay, so they're not meant to be paid off, these bonds.
Well, these are varieties on that. But to borrow money with little or no payment up front is to just cloud the issue. It's to kick the can down the road and hope that something
There's
like
still a
Measure
road.
B or something else comes along, or that I get elected to a different office by that time and can wash my hands of it.
Okay, I think I understand.
The other point I'd like to make is in the distribution of money, which, there's handicap buses, et cetera, in here, and they're all proportioned and such, but the bond payments come out first. So if the bond borrowing is incredibly high, and the expense is incredibly high, those payments come first, and then you get the 3% for traffic lights of what's left over. There may not be anything left over for maintenance after everything's
And the
bonded.
bond issues are entirely going for new capital improvements for rail?
Well, a variety of things.
Is any of it going to new streets and highways?
A lot of it is going to, some of it is going to like Hazel Road, the widening of Hazel Avenue,
Hazel Boulevard.
adding carpool lanes along Highway 50. A little bit of it is about $458,000 went to the Cross the Top project, which is really a small amount, in my opinion, based on the bonds that they're taking out. And another problem with the capital projects is they're supposed to use the money to match funds, state and federal funds. Sacramento Transportation Authority has told me a couple times now that they do not keep track of whether or not matching is being followed. So they're the oversight. There's an oversight committee too, but they are the oversight agency for dispersing these capital funds, capital project funds out, and they are not watching to make sure that those funds are being matched.
Okay, you're talking about federal funds and state matching
Federal and
funds?
state funds, yes.
Okay, so there are federal and state matching funds available?
Yes.
Okay. And nobody is figuring out whether or not
Nobody's
to apply
watching.
for them?
Nobody's watching and keeping track.
Certainly on the Township 9, there was no matching. That was a developer project. We do see an attempt by the City of Sacramento to match some funds,
By
but
the
no
city?
one by the city. The funds are distributed, and each entity sort of spends it the way they see fit.
By entity, you mean?
City of Sacramento gets their portion, Elk Grove gets their portion, Ileton gets a little money too. And so I'm not sure what happens in Ileton, but they don't have a lot of money probably distributed to them. But there's some large chunks of money here, and there's no supervision of where it's gone to matching.
Well, if there's no matching funds, then aren't they just starting out between 50 and 60% in the hole to begin with?
Absolutely.
Well, if you
They're not
don't,
leveraging their money.
if you don't have a possibility of finishing it because you're going to come in 50 to 60% short, why would you even start?
Well, politicians start things that they can't finish. And two, that's why Measure B is on the table. As one person commented, we had Measure A for 0.5%, we have Measure B on the table for 0.5%, and there's a whole alphabet to go.
And every intention of getting to Z.
I would presume.
Okay.
Given the trend, I would presume.
Okay. We'll talk about this in other shows, but I have to ask one question. What does the polling say? Is Measure B, is there any inkling that you have on whether or not Measure B will pass or fail?
So the only figures we have is from the Sacramento Transportation Authority, which polls every year to see if something like this will pass. And this is the first year that their polling said it would pass, just barely, as long as there was no opposition. And so they decided to put it on the ballot. And there's quite a consortium of funders for the yes on Measure B. And right now they have about $600,000 plus to spend on it. And you have part of the team, an eclectic coalition of a variety of people across the county of varying political persuasions who have the massive sum of $21,000 currently to fight for a no on Measure B.
And that's you guys.
That's us.
Okay.
Grab the sign.
Okay.
So those who are supporting the measure, has anybody done a comparison between how much they're going to contribute to get Measure B passed compared to how much they will gain by having it passed through them landing contracts to do the work?
So the official estimate of Measure B is $3.6 billion over its lifetime.
Billion.
Billion.
It would be great.
Perhaps if the rate of funds from taxation comes in faster, Debra thinks it could be in the $5 billion area.
Wow. We'll get into the gory details of this huge money pot on another show. Thank you very much for being part of the show. See you again next week on Libertarian Conterpoint. Thank you very much.